instrumental album that Clive put together. 10 tracks. It's in the tradition of the great Channel One instrumental albums, and something that I know he feels very strongly about. But Clive, is great to just have a chance to reason with you about it. Can you give me some backstory on the album and let people know what your vision was for it and how it came together?
Well, I grew up hearing a lot of instrumentals coming from in the ska era, I was a little boy, but I played a trumpet. That was my main instrument for many years. That's my introduction into everything I do musically. Mm-hmm. So, of course, I'd be more attuned to instrumentals or playing of instruments. So, the ska era, and then goes into Tommy McCook and his stuff after, and Roland and so on. But all of those days, I was a classical musician. I never did nothing to do with any of these things.
What was your training then?
I trained as a musician, a classical trumpeter.
Through what school?
No, I went to Stony Hill. In the two main, like Alpha, there's Stony Hill. It's a government. It's actually a reformatory.
Okay.
For boys,
and they also had a music program.
They had a music program. They had one which was famous because it was all of the musicians prior to my time came from Alpha and Stony Hill. But then when I went there was no program. So they actually started it back when I was there, and I was lucky to be right there.
Okay. Were there any notable peers of yours that went on into reggae? Or did they all go on?
From Stony Hill?
Yeah, from Stony Hill.
Only one guy, but he left for Germany. His name is Itiko. And he's a trumpeter. He came after me, but he's a Rasta man who goes really deep into his Rasta thing. Okay. He's nothing to do with commercial stuff.
Gotcha.
Yes, and he went to Germany, and then he resides now in England. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So based on that trumpet background, and you just had a natural affinity for horns, hearing them and playing.
Yes, because when I was learning trumpet at Stony Hill, I was like the leading young boy interested in music. So I would learn the trumpet, the trombone, all of these instruments at the same time. I would actually assist the teacher in teaching the other guys. So I knew the instruments, what they can do, what they couldn't do, their range, their register, their transposition. So it was natural for me. And then I went into the army to play trumpet, and the army sent me to study in England, which is the top military training facility for musicians in the world, at Nella Hall in England, and I did quite well. I came back and I was back in the army, and at the same time I was playing in the Jamaica Philharmonic Symphony Orchestra. And I would help out because I was really into theory. I prefer I wanted to be a conductor and arranger, somebody like that. So I played just because I had to. I was told I had to play. So, but a lot of people turned to me, even when I was in the army, even in school in England, on theoretical matters. That was where my real interest was. Even when I was playing, I was a copyist for the symphony orchestra and the military band. And Byron Lee asked me to do copies for his band whenever he had people like the Mighty Sparrow, the big Calypsonians come to Jamaica.
So you would write out the charts for the musicians
to play. Write the charts
for
the musicians, the cards and everything.
So you could listen to something and then put it on sheet for every instrument. You could write it out.
Any instrument, I would do it very easily. And then I before my official days as a session reggae musician, I would hang out, because I was in the army. I'd hang out with Fab Five, because a couple of guys in the band, in the military band, was associated with Fab Five, and they had a youth thing, which they call Sing Out Jamaica. It's a club with young people singing and playing. I would go there and watch, and they had a studio, but I never really... In fact, their studio was where the Groundation album was done. You know that album?
Of course,
yes.
Count Ossie, yeah.
Yes, Count Ossie, yeah. It was done there. I wasn't really...
Did you play any of it?
No, I didn't. I was observe.
But you know? So you must have known then Cedric Brooks really well from...
Yeah, man, well, yes. Then soon after I started working with Cedric, we worked together. I never worked with him, but we worked together at Treasure Isle Studio and Drew Creed, a lot of stuff. And the last time we worked was on an album for culture. I think it was either International Herb or Colombo. And then actually we had a fallout, and that's where I went for Dean Fraser, because I need a sax man. And Dean was just a band guy, you know. And then I was told about a guy named Youth Sax, and it was Dean Fraser. So I went for Dean, and from that day, Dean became a steady studio man. I always credit myself for bringing him into the business.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah, but
but what was your?
instruments.
But I don't mean to interject, but I do want to know for historical record. Then, what was your first? What were your first sessions that you recall?
My first official session, it was, I was in the army, and I used to hang around with a guy named Bunny Brown from a group named Chosen Few, with Derek Harriet as this team of singers with Junior Marvin, whose original name was Junior Soul.
Sure.
When he, you know.
So like Heartbreak Girl and that kind of
Yeah,
thing?
yeah, you know, and all of that. So I would hang around them, and they all know that I was a good young musician. But then Jeffrey Chung, Harry J, I just produced Lana Bennett, Breakfast in Bed, and it was taken off on the British chart. So I was told that they needed to finish an album fast, so they had one song they wanted to do, and they called me to do Ons. And I was a soldier, so I just take my lunchtime to do the Ons, and when I went there, it was taking the musicians a bit long. I didn't know at that moment I was working at the top studio, one of the top studio in reggae music, in fact, the top recording band in reggae music, Now Generation band. I didn't know who they were. I was just there, and them not take long to do the thing. And I was like, I was actually reading a comic book. I was very young. I was reading a comic book and with my trumpet and keep going like, I have to go back to work, you know. You know what I mean? And I think Wire Lindo, Wire turned to me and asked me, I know the song. I said, no, 'cause I didn't know no song. Me as a musician, I just turn up and play what you asked me to play. I'm a guy who sight read. You give me something, I read it. You play me something, sing it to me, I write it down and play it. So that was my thing. You know what I mean? To me, it was like easy as that. Anyway, I kind of talked to them a little and get involved. And I think my involvement helped finish the music track a little faster. And I did my trumpet part, which was like with the horns. I did it, it took me 5 minutes. And when they paid me, the pay was like my 2 weeks pay now in the army. It was the same pay just for 5 minutes work. I would not want to make it look like the money attract me, but it was very easy.
But it got you thinking.
I was thinking, I said, what? And it was easy work and all of them, man. To me, them was like, I don't know, anything them do, I can do. You know what I mean? I know mentally and educationally, musically, I think I was on their level. Anyway, Jeffrey Chung, who famous producer, musician, he was the one in charge of the session. I think he was the leader for the session, the musicians, the band. He asked me if I could come tomorrow again. And I said, yes, and here I am. It's been like that from to this day. I run into all type of problems in life because I decided to just take that route. You know what I mean? Yeah, and then because of my background, my family, my daddy, and Rastafari, I just kind of like always a little rebellious, you know. And I really real Jamaican. He's into real Jamaica and Africa. So we just decided to say, okay, I still do, up for a few years, I still do go back to do the symphony orchestra, do stuff, mix with people, do other music. But I think reggae, I just decided I'd also be a reggae person, and until now, that's it.
That's beautiful. You were really feeling the power of it from back then.
Yes, and I thought it was important for it to keep up. Because there have been many things that happen where the genre slip, and nobody would do it. And I just say, hey, I just go back in the studio, the different studio from everybody, and just do reggae. And suddenly everybody was like, start doing it again. Mm-hmm. I can tell you I've done that a few times.
Can you talk, I still want to talk about the new album, but this is good history. I mean, the first thing that came to my attention with your name on it was the Abyssinians album. That's a important piece of work. I mean, it's probably, anyone who listens to reggae knows that's one of the best full-length, complete albums ever recorded. And then you had Now Gen pretty much on the session, yeah?
No,
not them.
No.
Oh,
in fact,
I was under the impression that Jeffrey.
No, Jeff had nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do with that record.
No. The only thing Jeff had to do with it is the company who were the executive producers. Jeffrey was hired to the company. They hired Jeffrey, Bob Andy, a guy named John Alexander, who was in a group, I forget the name of the group, it was a big, one of those groups like Chosen Few, dance and stuff. And they signed a few people. They signed Abyssinians, they signed Carl Darkins, they signed Max Romeo.
This is Tropical Soundtracks?
The same label. The company was called Soundtracks. So when Jeffrey Chung and me from that day with RJ, we were partners. Anything he was doing, he made sure I have a gig there. Because I'm like anything I'll troubleshoot. He should say if there's a musical question, he turn to me and I'll solve it like this. You know what I mean? So any session he get, any work, anywhere in the world, he want me to be there. You know what I mean? Make sure I'm there. So Jeffrey asked him to hire me. So I would just do little things. Before I did the Abyssinian album, I think I did an album with Carl Dawkins, which was really supposed to be produced by Bob Andy. But once Carl saw me, Carl said, no, Clive, I want him to produce. And then I did an album with Max Romeo, I think it's called Open the Iron Gate. I did it at Black Hawk at Leaper Studio. Yeah. And then the time came for Abyssinians album to be done. And they had a meeting, I was in the meeting. And I was told that the Abyssinians said, no, we want the youth to produce it. So I produced that album, and in the middle of the album, the company went bankrupt and just everybody ran away. Mm-hmm. So I ended up now working at Joe Gibbs, Harry J, a few other studios for them to get studio time so I could finish the album. Okay. So I ended up playing, I laid the tracks with, I think Robbie played Shakespeare, playing a few Sly, playing a few Osmond, playing a few Mikey Boo, Mikey Richards playing a few, Robbie Lynn, all who were around, play around.
So, okay, that's why I must have seen Robbie Lynn and Mikey Boo Richards' name on it or something, and that's why.
Yeah, man. Yeah, Mikey Boo Richards was the one who actually gave me money. He was a part of the original group, and to say, Clive, you can produce, go and produce something. And I was always telling him, no, I'm not ready yet, I don't think I know it yet. And he actually gave me money to produce my first song, and the first song I produced was Milk and Honey. And he was the one who gave me money, and he told me not to hire none of them. He wanted to prove to me that I could do it with anybody. I actually only had a drummer and myself.
So that was the in-crowd Milk and Honey?
Actually, I put in-crowd name on it, but it's a high. Okay. I played the bass, I played the piano, I played the guitar, I played the trumpet, I sang it. And
you're the vocalist?
I did a vocal.
I mean, maybe that...
And Fish Clark, it's Johnny Clark brother, he played the drums, and Errol Brown recorded. Errol's alive, he can tell you everything. And I put in-crowd band because I used to play in the band, and me and Mikey and Rob Lynn were in that band, even though they were also no gen. So this was like two bands came into one. So I did it as a boost for the band. And the band, after a while I started to record, they had this big album when Godfather was born in Ethiopia. I know that album. Yeah. I know they gave Phil Calendar and Jamaican Honor, and he said, well, it was Clive Hunt who put our name on the record, but they didn't have nothing to do with it. Yes. Wow. But so the Abyssinians album, I actually started to work at different studios now to beg studio time, like with Joe Gibbs, so I could overdub stuff on the Abyssinians. So I ended up finishing the album on my own.
So it happened over a little period of time, not
yes, because it was a political situation. Soundtracks was formed it was a political situation I found out after. Because everybody there was to write speeches for the Prime Minister and ministers. They were one part of one side of one political party. So when there was a political something happening, everybody ran away. Well, you know what I mean?
It seemed like kind of a mess from the point of view of there was a master tape over, a mixtape over here and a tape over here and different. I mean, it's like
it's always a mess. That's a story. That story is take a book about that album. Yeah, I'm serious.
All right, next time.
Yes, next time. Definitely. I want to tell it one day. I've been telling it
it's important.
Piece by piece.
It's important because I don't say that lightly. I mean, in reggae is a singles music. I've always said it's a singles music, and there's not a lot of like full top to bottom records you can listen to all the way through. So when you have one like that, it's really notable.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm a musician, and I like to make music that I would listen to, and I think about what would make you keep your attention. In fact, when I work in the studio every day, even yesterday, when my songs are finishing, even it reaches, like if the song is 3.5 minutes, at 3 minutes and 10 seconds, I do something which has never happened in the song. And I do that, I kind of want to keep my audience attracted right until the last end. Mm-hmm. I hate to be playing a song for you, and somewhere in the middle of the song, you start a conversation. I want to grab your attention, right. And the same for me when I'm doing an album. Mm-hmm. You don't have that too much nowadays, because these artists don't focus on conceptually. It's just a song here, a song there, a song there. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's very tricky for me. I have to use I use my arranging skills and some experience, my experience to try to tie up the songs, keep your attention going to the next song, But back in earlier, it was more in a concept, the way you approach the production of an album. Mm-hmm. And I learned that from Jeff Richong still. But it was global, basically. Yeah.
So tie it back to your interest in doing a horns instrumental album, and you had mentioned earlier about JoJo saying that we're not sure which, but one of these Channel One instrumentals was biggest selling.
Well, what happened is because I know I I've been involved in a little in the publishing business, and I've had a few stuff sync, over the years. I have gotten requests. The people contact me a lot and tell me they were interested in